Hi, I'm Mark McClure, and welcome to another segment of the Ruthless Entrepreneur Show, a show dedicated to business owners, salespeople, and entrepreneurs who are sick and tired of blaming the economy and use it as an excuse for their lack of sales and depleting income. But more than that, folks, they are ready to do something about it. On today's show, we're going to talk about one of the two most important ingredients to closing any deal, folks, and that's rapport. The other ingredient is emotion. Well, on today's show, we have Mike Miller, a man that has not only competed in the trenches of the U.S. military, but the trenches of entrepreneurial America. And folks, he's going to come on here today and talk about what it takes to create rapport. Find the hot buttons of your prospect so you can put together presentations that get results, folks. So you can take rapport, emotion, bring them together, and close the sale. When we come back, Mike Miller, and you do not want to miss this. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everybody, to the Ruthless Entrepreneur Show. And on today's show, like I tell you on every show, that's like a broken record, but TiVo this. We're going to have some great information. And with us today, we have Mike Miller. Mike, great to have you here today.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Mark.
Mike is the author of Selling at Combat Speed. You got to check it out as a former military guy. I know where he's coming from. Great book. Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com.
Yes.
Fantastic. Mike, your forte, obviously, is sales training, sales techniques outside the box. Name of your company's Primo Solution.
Yes.
How did that all begin? I know you have a military background, but what got you into the sales training aspect of it?
That's a good question, Mark, and a lot of people ask me how it began. And it's kind of, I started in the industry, in the sales industry in Phoenix, Arizona, and I worked for a company for a few years, and the whole idea was, I try to evaluate my values, every so often. I think everybody should. And about 3 years into this company, I thought, I think I can do better. Mm-hmm. I think I can provide a better product, a better service to my clients. I want to be able to be in a place in my life where I can make a difference in somebody's life. So like every entrepreneur, I left that job, started my own company, and here we are. Absolutely, it's a huge change.
Dictate your own income, though, through your own performance rather than the company dictating how you get paid.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I just got back from Asia, did a lot of events over there, and what I found differently in Asia than I did here in the United States is over there they're not blaming the economy for their lack of sales or lack of success, but here, these idiots, they keep blaming themselves, oh, it's the economy, and we know that's not the case. From your experience, what are you finding to be the main barriers to sales success for most entrepreneurs? What's holding them back?
Mark, I'm with you. I'm so tired of hearing that same old excuse about the economy, because the economy should not dictate our closing ratios. As salespeople, what we need to do is we need to get out of our way from each other. Right. Right now, we're stepping on our own feet. And the reason why is because we've adopted a script as a sales process. Mm-hmm. And so many times we use that script, and salespeople are asking questions. And without really even listening, they're going back and they're thinking about, what am I going to ask next?
Right, exactly.
Instead of saying, hey, let me just ask you a question, really listening to what you're saying, mm-hmm. and then build my next question based on that. So it's all about transforming a process from a scripted process into your own unique selling process.
Instead of blaming the economy for your lack of sales, it's pretty much the process that they're using.
Exactly. Okay. And take a little bit of blame for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Accountability. We hear a great movie, Glengarry, Glen Ross, always be closing, ABC, always be closing. And, I've closed deals from 10,000 to 100 million, and that's not the case. It's not always be closing. I found the biggest ingredient to getting a sale closed was rapport. And, pretty much the foundation for the show today is on rapport building. So give me your thoughts on that. Do you subscribe to the ABC theory, or are you more on building the rapport and building a relationship first?
Yeah, you've heard the phrase that copies for closers?
Yeah.
I say copies for rapport builders. I believe that rapport building is the most critical key in the sales process. And you'll hear a lot of different arguments from different sales trainers, but for me it's about building that relationship, to getting people to open up and be honest and trust and bridge that gap between the prospect and the salesperson. Right. As soon as they open up and they become honest, the objections are going to be easier to overcome. The close is going to be the next logical step in the process. But so many salespeople, probably 95 to 98%, leave out that process. They leave out the whole step of building rapport in the entire sales process.
They try to get right to the close.
Exactly. I think you can make the sale in the first 5 minutes, and it all starts with building rapport.
Yeah, well, overcoming objections, closing the sale, it's a process. So in building rapport, what's a good opening question? Let's say you want to get the person talking, the dialogue going. You want to, before you start closing, create that relationship. What's some good opening questions when you finally sit down with a prospect? How do you get them talking? What's some good opening questions that you found?
I got a great first question, and I got to kind of walk you through the scenario. You got the first base, which is building rapport.
Yep.
You have second base. This is the baseball diamond.
Yep,
Second base is needs discovery. Third base is the managed presentation, actually delivering that presentation,
Yep.
a customized presentation, and you rounding home is closing or overcome objections. Well, I have what's called the redirect, because what happens is the mistake that people make, salespeople make, is that immediately they turn into a transactional sales process. Somebody walks in and they say, hey, I want to know a little bit about this. I want to know about your prices. I want to know about this. And immediately what happens is the salesperson goes to third base and starts throwing up all over their shoes.
Yes. Yep,
right?
yeah.
So the whole idea of the redirect is to take the question, one simple question, say, I'd be happy to help you with that, Mark, but do you mind if I ask you a question first?
Gotcha.
What's your situation?
So if someone keeps hitting you with, how much does it cost? How much does it cost? How much does it cost? What would you do? You redirect them back before you get to that point?
Yeah, they want to know about the cost.
Right.
I'd be happy to tell you about the cost, but do you mind if I ask you a question first? What's your situation? Most people, 99.9% of the people will let you ask that question. And as soon as you do, you ask an open-ended question that gets them to open up and start talking.
So feeding you the information first and then build around that, then take the basis one step at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to take that information as a salesperson and I'm taking notes, and I'm going to go back to my notes and review them while they're talking.
Right.
And I'm going to ask specific questions about the things that they've said.
And mold your presentation on everything they told you.
That's where my questions are going to come
Right,
from.
exactly.
It's no longer a script.
Right. So, okay, so you and I are on the same page. Instead of going there with just some script, some canned presentation, find out who that prospect is, different likes, different needs, different dislikes, and mold it around that specific personality, sell to that specific personality.
Exactly. We both have talked about personalities,
Yes, exactly.
and you have to sell those different personality types.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, and you're a big proponent of this as well. I cannot stand people. You go to any bookstore, you see books on selling, overcoming objections, closing the sale, written by people that have never done it. So we come back, I want to dive into that a little bit with you, and then we'll come back with some more great information on selling with Mike Miller. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We are back with the Ruthless Entrepreneur Show with Mike Miller, author of Selling at Combat Speed. Go check it out. Another good book you want to check out is The Ruthless Entrepreneur by moi. Anyway, Mike, when we left off, again, we're both on the speaking circuit. We both come from military backgrounds. We both come back from entrepreneurial backgrounds. So we speak from experience. There's a lot of people out there that speak because they cannot do. So let me talk about that for a second. You're a big proponent on the fundamentals of selling, not speaking verbiage or something you read in some book. Let's talk about that for a second. You learn from the trenches, okay? Give us your thought on still the need for fundamentals rather than trying to go out and learn the next big sales gimmick.
Yeah, you know, Mark, I spoke about a scripted process versus a non-scripted. I'm a firm believer in non-scripted, but I also believe in the fundamentals. It's like golfing.
Right.
You mentioned the golf example. That's a great example. Let's take Tiger Woods, for instance, or any of us as golfers. When you're over the ball, the last thing you want to be thinking about as you're approaching it and you're getting ready to hit that ball is keeping my head down, keeping my eye on the ball, keeping my arm straight, getting a nice backswing, all these fundamental things that you have to know that should be committed to muscle memory.
Right.
In the sales process, the same thing. You know, when you're in the sales process and you got this one-on-one interaction going and you're building rapport, you've got that relationship, the last thing that you want to be thinking about is what I'm going to be thinking about ahead of time.
Right.
Let me be present right now. Let me be in the moment. But still, the muscle memory part of the bases, as you go around those bases.
It kicks right in automatically.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
That's the whole concept of selling at combat speed. I don't want to think about what I got to do when I'm faced with the enemy. It just becomes automatic because I train so much.
That's
Absolutely.
Right. That's a good point. Well, let's stick to the fundamentals because they're absolutely crucial. But, however, in sales, you're still going to think outside the box. So how do you blend the two together? How do you stick with the fundamentals but still think outside the box and use different outside-the-box strategies? How do you blend the two together?
Yeah, I think you have to be creative.
Yeah.
And I think this is a personal preference, and that's why we teach that, you know, I want your sales process to be unique than anybody
Right.
else's where you're still practicing those fundamentals. But you also got to kind of step outside the box, like you talked
Yeah.
about, and you got to step outside that comfort zone. People don't like to do that.
No,
People
no.
like to live inside their comfort zone. What I share with them is, you know what, live outside your comfort zone and let the comfort zone be a resting place because it's about changing behaviors. Training is all about making changes in your behavior, and that's something that has to happen time after time after time. Turn it into a habit as opposed to a behavior.
That's true. Well, and let's talk about habits for a second here. Again, we selling at combat speed military, and I was in the Marine Corps, and I brought some of the characteristics from the Marine Corps to the sales world. You in the Army, an officer, I'm sure you brought some of those same characteristics from the military. to your selling? What characteristics do you bring from the military that are helping you out today in the real world of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, there's probably two or three that I can name. One is courage.
Yep.
And the courage, what I mean is to really step outside and to do those things that don't feel good, stepping outside, doing your comfort zone. It's kind of like the ship captain.
Yeah.
You know, his courage is not measured when the winds are calm, but his courage is measured when the storms are there.
That's a good point, yeah.
In combat, our courage is not so much when we're in training, but what happens in a wartime.
In the real world.
Another thing is determination. I think Vince Lombardi said it best, is that success is not measured by strength, but more by knowledge and by determination. And for us in the military, failure, and
It's
you know
not an
this,
option.
it's not even close to being an option.
Right.
We may lose certain battles, but we will
Gotta
never win the war.
And winning the war is getting that sale closed.
Exactly, that is the war. And the last thing is selfless service.
Yep.
And I go back to the foxhole, and I go back to team missions. When we're in combat, we're in a military situation, you know this, that we're not thinking about me.
Right.
I'm thinking about my team.
The team.
And when I'm in a sales and I got the prospect in front of me, it's not about a win-win situation. I don't care if it's I don't want it to be a win-win. For me, I want it to be a 100% win for Mark or for that prospect, whoever it is. Eventually, I'll get my win.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's about being 100% win
And
for that
build
prospect.
from there, building that win. Absolutely. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because you're going to have rejection. So you talked about, in the military, bringing that characteristic there, being able to deal with rejection. But what do you teach sales professionals? You have that background, but a lot of them don't. They're going to have rejection. How do they overcome rejection? What do you teach them how to stay motivated after they get these rejections in sales? Because there's going to be a lot of them.
I just had this question not too long ago in a training session, because it's like a roller coaster. Right? You're up on top, you're down on low. And you'll hear from a lot of sales trainers that they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the product.
Right.
I kind of disagree with that. I mean, sometimes I think they are rejecting the product because it's just not right for them, but I think most of the time they are rejecting the salesperson. They want to buy from people they like. They want to buy from people they trust and people they know. You create that relationship, and you don't have to worry about that, but you're going to have your highs and lows. A military guy, a great friend of mine was a recruiter. He'd send his recruits out, or his recruiters out there, and he said, you cannot come back until you get 100 no's. So they would go out there, and the expectation was, okay, I just got to get 100 no's, and I can go back to the office. Well, out of those 100 no's, eventually maybe
Some
2 or 3
trainer,
people
yes,
would say yes. But he didn't do this every day, but every now and then he would throw that out. When the morale's getting low, let me go out there with the expectation that the rejection is going to be there at times.
And deal with
just be used to it, get used, and have that determination, that goes with being a good salesperson.
That's a good point. When we come back, we're going to take a break here in a few minutes. When we come back, we're going to switch gears a little bit. I know you have a mystery shopping component to your business, and we know how mystery shopping works in the retail world, but you take it to the next level. You're taking it to the outside sales world, and I've never heard about that before. So definitely interested to hear what you have to say about the mystery shopping component. So when we come back, give us a little feedback on that. We're going to take a quick break. Go grab the fridge, grab a beer, whatever you want to do. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. We'll see you in a few. Thanks. Welcome back, everybody. Mark McClure here with the Ruthless Entrepreneur Show with Mike Miller. Welcome back, everybody. Mark McClure here with the Ruthless Entrepreneur Show with Mike Miller. And when we took off before the break, we were talking about mystery shopping, and I think a lot of people understand how that works. You go into a retail outlet, and they send people in to see how that person's doing. How do you apply it to the outside sales world? That's a pretty big component of your business.
It is, and the misconception is exactly that, Mark, is that people do. They think about retail, they think about hospitality and the customer service side. I've taken the spin where I want to address on the sell side. And just for an example, let's say we're talking about the home building industry, because I deal a lot with that. What we do is we'll send our shoppers in there and evaluate, act like they're buying a home and evaluate the sales process. Because here's what we're finding out. The industry is spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to hire guys like us to do sales training. First of all, they don't have a baseline. They don't know where they're at currently. They don't know what they need to train to, and they don't know where they want to go.
So they're trying to throw it against the wall, see what sticks, rather than doing the adequate research and then building the sales training around it.
Exactly.
Makes perfect sense. Okay. Competitive industry, or
it is.
You're following a niche market.
It is competitive. I am kind of in a niche market, but it's very competitive because it's the fastest growing industry in the industry, and it has been for the past 5 years. So if you think, there's a lot of people out there that do mystery shopping, there's not a lot of companies that do mystery shopping specifically to identify sales weaknesses and strengths.
Well, cool. And let's talk about, let's go back to sales a little bit here, because we all talk about, the most important part of the sales process, people like to say, is closing the sale. But you got to know when the right time to close the sale is. And a lot of people don't know that, and that's what kills a lot of closing ratios for people. When, in your opinion, as far as sales, when do you think the right time to close the sale is? What do you look for from that person that tells you, you know, now's the time to ask?
I think it's going to be different for every prospect.
Yep.
And I think the problem with salespeople today is that they think it's exactly the same time every time.
Yep.
Normally, I think they're trying to close in the very beginning when there is the prospect will let you know. There's buying signals out there that you need to watch.
What's a big buying signal that you see quite a bit?
Well, I think you got to listen
Yeah.
with your eyes and with your ears. People think we do a terrible job of listening in the first case.
2 ears, one eye, mouth, twice as much listening. It's
There you go.
done.
You got to do the 80-20
exactly.
rule, and people don't realize that. But what they've got to do, they got to look at the buying signals.
Yep.
You know, if I'm sitting across from you and I'm kind of doing like this, or I'm constantly looking at my watch,
No interest.
they're going. They're
Right.
out the door. Even no matter what they say, they're gone. But if I'm leaning forward and they're interested, they're asking questions, and guess what? If they're throwing out objections,
Yeah,
that's
that's
a great
when,
buying signal.
Well, the big objection a lot of people get, and this is what separates the top performers from everybody else, is the ability to overcome, I need to think about it. But besides that, when that objection's thrown out there, people think, well, my God, it must be the money. Let's drop the price. Let's drop the price. How do you still overcome that objection without dropping the price? What technique have you found to be the best method?
Well, without getting into a whole lot of specifics,
there's a lot of specifics,
let's talk a
but,
little bit in vague terms.
Yeah.
The whole idea, because most people, maybe 5% of the entire industry
Right.
is really using a sales process. So that other 95% who are just showing up on third base
Right.
and they're throwing up on their shoes,
Yeah.
they're not really going through a process, which makes overcoming objections almost impossible,
Right.
which makes asking for the close really very uncomfortable.
Right.
What I teach is let's go through the process. Stop, take a breath.
Yeah.
Let's build a little bit of rapport. Let's really find out what the interests
The
are.
prospect
and
will
find-
tell you how to sell it if you let them talk.
You better believe
yeah,
it.
Yeah,
The prospect will make that sell.
Right. They'll hand the deal to you on a silver platter. Just let them talk.
That's right. But as salespeople, we don't want
Right.
to do that. We want to talk ourselves out of the deal.
Talk. It's unbelievable. We talked about, you know, and I talked to you on the phone before we came on here. I read your book, fantastic. You gave me some great information here. But you talk about staying on the prospect's agenda, and it makes perfect sense. But you're talking about when you're having trouble seeing them, trying to get in the front door. Explain to me how that's vital of staying on their agenda. What do you mean by that?
The acronym WIFM.
Okay.
What's in it for me? And not me as the salesperson, but what's in it for the prospect. The prospect really doesn't care unless they ask our opinion.
Right.
So many salespeople, oh, if that was me, I would buy this car because of this, or I would move into
they
this
care
house
less.
because of this, or I would like to have the closet here.
Right.
The prospect doesn't really care what we want because we're not the one that's writing the check. But as long as we're staying on that agenda and we're being truly and genuinely interested in what that prospect is saying, we have
During the sales process, when you're
during-
talking to them. Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
During that process, our chances of closing the deal probably go up tenfold.
I wouldn't doubt it. Well, that comes down to listening now. And, you know, they don't listen. People don't listen, and you're a big proponent on listening skills. So, you know, what listening skills do you find to be most vital to the sales professional?
I kind of mentioned one of them was doing the body language.
Yep.
You're kind of listening with your eyes. And earlier in the show, I talked a little bit about this as well, is that you've got to be focused on, and this is staying on the
Yeah.
agenda, being interested, but focused on that prospect. So when you ask them a question, instead of me thinking about what my next question is going to be, I'm really intently listening to what you're saying. I'm taking notes. I'm a huge proponent for taking notes.
It shows professionalism, too. They're like, wow, this person actually cares what I'm saying. But another big thing, when they're talking and feeding me that information, I'm molding the presentation in my head. So when it gets time to make the presentation, it's geared specifically to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So-
It's kind of like listen to them, finding those hot buttons,
Yep.
and creating that customized presentation that is just for them and not for anybody else.
Well, Mike, fantastic information here today. Just chock full of information. And if people want to get your book, Selling at Combat Speed, where do they go? Amazon,
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and go to our website anywhere
What's
out
your
there.
website?
www.primosolutions.llc.com.
And where are you based out of?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. Great show here today. We're not done. When we come back, I got some little more nuggets for you. Stuff you can take out in the real world and use to close more deals, overcome objections, and make more money. So again, Mike Miller, we'll be back here in about 2 minutes. Take care.